Coming up on Primetime News, North Korea ramps up its military threats, hinting at a new ballistic missile test in the coming months, hours after it said it has no interest in Iran-style denuclearization talks. Reforming the labor market is set to be Korea's key political issue in the second half of the year, but rival parties differ on finer points about how to move forward. American lawmakers step up pressure on Japan to apologize for its past wartime atrocities, while two surviving victims of sexual enslavement sue Tokyo at a U.S. court. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Wednesday, July 29th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us.
North Korea seems prepped and ready to carry out more provocative actions in the coming months.
Well, according to one of their diplomats, Pyongyang will mark a special anniversary in October as it sees fit, meaning a long-range missile launch can't be ruled out. Our Son Jung-in starts us off.
Speaking to reporters at a rare press conference in New York on Tuesday, North Korea's ambassador to the UN, Kang Il-hoon, clearly stated that his country will hold a large-scale celebration in October to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of the Workers' Party.
We are free to do whatever we want, right? We are not bound by any treaty or any obligations of any sort.
The envoy refused to rule out the possibility of the North test-firing a long-range missile. Referring to the country as a nuclear weapons state, the ambassador added the North will never give up its nuclear weapons since they're an essential means to defend its sovereignty. He also reiterated that North Korea is not interested in holding any discussions on the unilateral freeze or abandonment of its nuclear weapons, which he said were necessary to protect the country against the U.S.
And the mission of our nuclear forces will never change as long as the hostile policy of the United States remains intact.
The statement comes a week after South Korea reported that North Korea had completed an upgrade of its rocket launch pad. Experts say it will be able to fire a long-range missile twice the size of the 30-meter-long Eunha-3 rocket launched in 2012. The U.S.-based North Korea monitoring website 38 North supports that assessment, citing recent satellite imagery of the Seohae satellite launching station near where the Eunha-3 was launched. It added that there are still no signs of preparations to launch a long-range rocket or missile from the facility. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
The ASEAN hosts a series of regional conferences every summer. Included on that list is the 27-member ASEAN Regional Forum, one of the few multinational platforms North Korea participates in. From the regime's nuclear arms program to historical differences in Northeast Asia, our Choi Yoo-sun takes us through some of the key issues that will top the agenda.
While North Korea is expected to attend this year's gathering of foreign ministers at the ASEAN Regional Forum, observers in South Korea are zooming in on whether the South's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se will meet one-on-one with his North Korean counterpart Lee Soo-yong. Seoul keeps a door open to inter-Korean dialogue, but the two diplomats may not have a meaningful encounter amid frosty relations. Pyongyang, meanwhile, will likely seek to mend ties with its traditional ally China, gone sour under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. In the wake of the international nuclear deal with Iran, countries participating in multinational efforts to denuclearize the North are hoping for a similar resolution. On the sidelines of next week's conference, Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo are expected to reaffirm their shared goal of bringing Pyongyang back to the stalled six-party talks while pressuring Beijing to persuade its ally. South Korea's top nuclear envoy, Hwang Ji-hye, has said the North is at a crossroads between completion of its nuclear arms development and denuclearization through dialogue. This, however, may be a long shot since the North, calling itself a nuclear state, said it was not interested in any renegotiation whatsoever over its nuclear weapons program. The South Korean foreign minister is also expected to meet his Japanese counterpart to urge Tokyo to responsibly resolve issues concerning Japan's atrocities during its colonization of the Korean peninsula. It, however, remains to be seen whether Seoul's diplomatic efforts will result in Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe upholding Tokyo's past apologies for its wartime aggressions in his expected statement to mark the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Efforts to restore the honor of the victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement continue. A U.S. lawmaker has called on Tokyo not to distort history, while 2 Korean survivors continue their legal battle against Japan in a U.S. court, demanding a sincere apology for its wartime atrocities. Our Han Da-eun has this story.
2 Korean sex slavery survivors took the issue to a U.S. court earlier this month. 87-year-old Yoo Hee-nam and 1 other Korean survivor who refused to reveal her name are suing the Japanese government for $20 million each as compensation for damages caused by the Japanese military's program of sexual slavery before and during World War II. The 2 are also demanding a sincere apology from Japan and listed the late Japanese Emperor Hirohito, the former Japanese Prime Minister Nobusuke Kishi, and 7 Japanese firms, including Mitsui and Mitsubishi, as defendants in the case, which was filed at a federal court in California on July 13th. Their lawyer told reporters on Tuesday the lawsuit aims to make Japan acknowledge the truth about its wartime history and apologize as its acts of cruelty continue to this day in the form of politicians calling wartime sex slaves prostitutes. U.S. lawmakers are also urging Tokyo to apologize. Congressman Mike Honda demanded the Japanese government not distort history at a ceremony held on Tuesday local time. The ceremony marks the 8th anniversary of a House resolution on the wartime sex slaves that called on Japan to take full responsibility for its wartime wrongdoing. Honda, who led the 2007 resolution, said Prime Minister Abe has the historic opportunity to apologize and accept historical responsibility. He went on to say that Abe should pass a law that ensures young people learn about the country's wartime past so its mistakes won't be repeated. He pointed out that it's illegal in Germany to deny the death camp atrocities committed against the country's Jewish population. He stressed that no one should be subjected to the abuses the Korean women faced and vowed to continue to work against such injustices. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
A group of young actors are set to tell the stories of comfort women, the euphemism for women forced to sexual slavery by Japan during World War II. They hope the musical set to open later this week in New York will help increase awareness of Japan's wartime atrocities and improve ties. Our Hwang Ji-hye reports.
With all its glitz and glamour, Broadway has long been the place for creative dreamers hoping for a shot at stardom. Just a 20-minute drive north in Harlem, another group of young dreamers is hard at work, rehearsing for the musical Comfort Women. Through music and movement, they tell the tragic story of the hundreds of women who are victims of Japan's wartime program of sexual enslavement. The director is a Korean college student named Dimo Kim, who created the musical to raise awareness about this lesser-known chapter in Korean history. But first, he had to ensure his 53 cast members knew the history too.
I didn't know about it before. I did research on it, and I was very, very devastated not knowing that this had happened.
Regardless of their nationality, the actors say getting the message out about the Comfort Women is their top priority.
As a Japanese and as a Japanese American, I think it's even more important to be involved so that people can see that, yeah, there's sentiment across the board for people to recognize this event in history.
A recent meeting with a former sex slave in Washington, D.C. strengthened their sense of purpose.
I could just feel her energy, her strength, her perseverance, her heartache as well. And I'm definitely going to take all of that with me into this show and hope to do everything that she's fought for up till now.
The director made clear that his intention is not to point fingers at Japan, but to build momentum for reconciliation between the two countries.
What I'm trying to say to the audience is, like, these are what happened, and these are what our new generation have to confront. And then, if we compromise by ourselves, then we can move forward to the future.
The musical Comfort Women will open at New York's biggest off-Broadway theater, St. Clement's, for a 2-week run on July 31st. The team's next goal is to bring the show here to Broadway. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News, New York.
Korea's rival parties are laying out plans to overhaul the country's labor market and eventually boost growth. But they're already wrestling with how to get the job done. Our Kim Young-gil has more.
The ruling Saenuri Party says is seeking to address the issue of labor market polarization to try to close existing gaps.
We hope to address the polarization in the labor market, the divide between workers at big companies and those at smaller firms, and between regular and irregular workers. We hope to boost the economy by strengthening the working class.
With the looming uncertainties in the global and domestic economy, Korean companies are increasingly reluctant to recruit regular workers, relying instead on irregular or temporary workers. Government data shows the number of irregular workers hit 6 million in March, or 32% of the country's entire workforce. The problem is that most of these positions are occupied by young people who are already struggling with a high unemployment rate. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy urged the government to focus more of its attention on this problem.
The youth unemployment rate is 10.2%, the highest since the Asian financial crisis in 1997. We must see this as a national emergency and devise special measures to address it. The government plans to create 200,000 new jobs, and they should all be full-time jobs.
The opposition also urged the government to pour more of its job creation resources into small and medium-sized firms, which account for more than 90% of all companies in Korea. The party said the government should support policies designed to strengthen SMEs and help them prosper, as well as policies to resolve labor market inequalities. To achieve the goal of restructuring the labor market, the ruling bloc is demanding the revival of a tripartite committee composed of the government, labor, and management. The opposition says that what's needed is a new, more inclusive body with the participation of the country's two main umbrella labor unions, the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions and the Federation of Trade Unions. The two parties plan to iron out their labor market reform plans during their next regular session that starts in September. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
And now for the latest on allegations, the nation's spy agency used a hacking program to spy on civilians. Korea's rival parties agreed to hold a technology session early next month in which NIS engineers and civilian experts will offer their explanations on the hacking software's usage records. The agreement, which does not specify how much will be revealed regarding the records, was made in the Parliamentary Intelligence Committee on Wednesday. While the opposition bloc has demanded the spy agency reveal all of the log files, the ruling party supports the spy agency's stance that full disclosure of the records would severely damage the nation's intelligence activities.
The portion of the euro used to settle imports and exports for Korea's trade settlements went up in the second quarter of this year compared to the first quarter, while the opposite was seen with the U.S. dollar. According to the Bank of Korea, Wednesday, the EU currency's use rose 0.3 percentage points for both imports and exports. The central bank attributes this to a more than 20% and almost 9% hike in exports and imports, respectively, to and from EU nations in the April to June period. However, it was a different story for the U.S. dollar. Its import and export settlements saw a drop from the first quarter, despite the greenback representing the biggest proportion of the country's trade settlements. Local companies' second quarter profits have not shown great results so far. But a look at the next quarter is even less exciting after the majority of Korea's biggest firms recently saw their outlooks slashed with a shrinking global demand. Our Kwon So-hwa gives us the details.
The third quarter of the year is looking grim in terms of profits for 2/3 of Korea's largest firms. According to market researcher FN Guide, the market consensus for the third quarter operating profit of 71 out of 109 companies was lower than a month ago. The forecast for Samsung Electronics, Korea's biggest firm, was down by 4%, and the outlook for its rival LG Electronics by more than 7%. Top construction firms and the country's biggest steelmaker were not spared downgraded projections either. It's a similar story for cosmetic giant Amore Pacific, which was particularly affected by the MERS outbreak. Samsung C&T and Tail Industries, two Samsung Group affiliates set to merge, were cut too, and for the nation's shipbuilders and Korea's leading railway manufacturer, the outlook is even more bleak. The dropping profit expectations are largely due to low global demand, as Korea's biggest companies are largely export-reliant. And this is why some believe profitability won't improve anytime soon.
If the global economy picks up and Korea's price competitiveness improves, exports will pick up. But for that to happen, we have to enhance our product quality, and that's more of a mid to long-term issue.
But some analysts are less pessimistic, like Kim Hyung-yeol of Kyobo Securities, who says the Q3 forecast is based on major Korean firms, meaning a decline in their profits could represent a better balance of market dominance between big and small companies. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Trade ministers from 12 countries have started talks to reach a deal on the Trans-Pacific Partnership on Tuesday, local time in Hawaii. A final deal that will account for 40% of world trade could be made public as early as Friday. A number of challenging differences have reportedly been resolved through the talks, particularly those between the U.S. and Japan. The two sides have been negotiating ways to remove tariffs on Japanese auto parts while opening the Japanese agricultural market. U.S. President Barack Obama has expressed hopes to make a deal during this meeting. More items are going digital, making paper copies redundant. That trend extends to bank books that are a century-old tradition in Korea. Local banks will advise customers to ditch paper bank books starting this September and also provide incentives for making the transition. Starting September 2017, banks will not issue them without specific customer request. And starting 2020, such requests may require extra payments. The change comes as part of government measures to innovate financial transactions. It costs around $5 to $15 for a financial institution to issue a single paper bank book.
Moving on to the subject of national defense, the Korean flag or taegukgi isn't a standard part of a soldier's uniform in all branches of the military, but that's about to change. Korea's defense ministry is on a mission to have the flag displayed on all BDUs by October in time for an important day in Korean history. According to our Connie Kim, the project is already in full swing.
The goal is to boost the soldiers' pride in their country and their mission to defend it. The project got started with a ceremony in Nonsan, south of Seoul on Wednesday, as parents and grandparents attached Korean flag patches onto the uniforms of their sons and grandsons, who just completed 5 weeks of military training before beginning their mandatory military service.
We believe today's ceremony to celebrate the addition of national flag to soldiers' uniforms will help instill a sense of pride and patriotism in the troops, the nation's defenders.
Marking the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, Korea aims to have its national flag attached on all soldiers' military uniforms by October. Up until today, only the Korean augmentation to the United States Army, or KACHUSA, the Marines and soldiers dispatched overseas, had the flag displayed on their uniforms. For Private Lee Jun-hyung, a U.S. citizen who chose to enlist in the Korean Army, having the Korean flag on his uniform is a reminder of his roots.
Although I was born in a different country, the Korean flag reminds me that I'm still part of this one.
For many of the soldiers who are part of today's events, the thought of being separated from family during their service brought up some strong emotions. For their families, seeing the flags on the young soldiers' uniforms served as a powerful reminder of all that's at stake for the men and the country they're about to defend. Connie Kim, Arirang News, Nunsan.
It's time for top international headlines. We turn to our Lee Sun-ho at the News Center.
Today's focus: Afghan officials say the Taliban leader has been dead. England and France meet up for talks over illegal migrants. And a killed lion in Zimbabwe is causing an uproar on the internet.
So, Sun-ho, what are the authorities in Afghanistan saying about the Taliban leader?
Yes, guys, Afghan officials confirmed that Mullah Mohammed Omar, the leader of the Afghan Taliban, is dead. He was said to have died 2 or 3 years ago, according to the Afghan government and intelligence sources, but no other details after this were released. Omar ruled Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001 before being overthrown by U.S.-led forces due to his alliance with al-Qaeda's Osama bin Laden. Mullah Omar had since gone into hiding, with the U.S. offering a $10 million reward for information leading to his capture. Though there have been rumors of Mullah Omar's death before, this is the first time top sources from the Afghan government have acknowledged them. The Taliban said that they would provide a statement on the matter shortly. And turning to Europe, British and French ministers vowed to stem the movement of illegal migrants into Europe after many of them tried to enter the Eurotunnel on Monday. One died trying to reach Britain. British Home Secretary Theresa May met with her French counterpart in London on Tuesday to find measures to stop illegal migrants coming into the EU. The issue has been reaching a breaking point as 2,000 migrants attempted to storm the Eurotunnel's French terminal, causing service delays throughout the night. In an interview, one migrant gave his reasons for wanting to enter Europe.
Because my family is there, I have my wife and 4 kids. That's why I'm going. In addition, there's a lot of work in England. It's a country with a good economy.
Discussions among the two ministers were said to have been positive, with Britain promising to contribute up to £7 million, or about $10.9 million to fighting the crisis. May also mentioned that they were looking to send back the migrants back to their original countries. And lastly, moving on to some rather unusual news, a U.S. tourist has been accused of killing an iconic lion on Tuesday by the Safari Operators Association of Zimbabwe. The president of the association stated that Walter James Palmer, a dentist from Minneapolis, paid $55,000 to kill the 13-year-old animal. The lion, named Cecil, was a popular attraction at the Hwang Ji-hye National Park. The Zimbabwe Conservation Task Force told reporters that Palmer paid the cash to 2 locals who lured the creature out of the park. Palmer then shot the lion using a crossbow. Cecil's death is considered to be illegal because the locals did not have permits to hunt lions. If convicted, the 2 men will face poaching charges. And that does it for your international news at this hour. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.
People in the southern regions are struggling under blazing heat with heat wave alerts in effect. Scorching conditions have been baking regions including Ulsan, Daegu, and parts of Jeju Island. And speaking of Jeju, the island was hit this afternoon by a record temperature of 36.7 degrees Celsius, the hottest in 73 years. And tomorrow, the whole nation will continue battling a heat wave, facing thicker humidity, which will make you feel very uncomfortable during the day. Now, the monsoon season officially ended today, but there could be pop-up showers before noon in some of the central parts of the country due to atmospheric instability. But still, the rain will not mean much of a relief from the heat, as the daily high here in Seoul will go up to 30, and Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 35 and 34, while Busan tops out at 31. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 30 32 and 35, while Dokdo rises to 29. Now brace yourself for tropical nights. The overnight low in most parts are forecast to be near 25 degrees plus. But that's all for the weather. Good night.
I don't understand the car wash part, though.
Well, it looked fun, though. I mean,
I guess
bubbles looked a lot of fun.
Definitely. Well, we've come to the end of our newscast. Thank you so much for staying with us.
We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. Goodbye for now.